what's your film about?
Oh, okay. So it's about Diana Kennedy. She spent her life mastering the cuisines of Mexico, but the individual regions, making sure that they were protected, that the recipes were passed on, that nothing was lost in the process of industrialization, commercialization of the food sector. And she wrote 10 cookbooks and contributed, a great deal. And she's,
What's the reason you decided to make this film?
I think that it was serendipitous because I wanted to tell the story of the way that in Mexico especially you can see that these traditions that are so precious and beautiful are being passed down from abuelas, tias, to their hijas, and to, it's a family thing, but it's a female thing. This is about women, and women are the ones who are responsible for keeping food culture alive. And Mexico is an amazing representation of that. And so I think that the respect that we need to have as a global community towards these women, these generations who have committed themselves to making sure that these recipes don't get lost, that's what was interesting to me. And then Diana really got that. I didn't even know she existed. And I wanted to look at that, and then when I found her, I was like, oh, she spent her entire life making sure that these things didn't get lost.
Absolutely. So Diana has been a kind of bridge between Mexico and I would say all the English-speaking world.
Yes.
I would like to ask you, according to your experience, what would be the way Mexican people see Diana's contributions?
I don't know. I think that that's not my question to answer because I don't know what it would be like to be Mexican and to see Diana. Is it like, okay, well, she's a white woman. Why is she here? I think that might be the perception of some people. But I know that I don't feel that way about her because I know that in my experience with her, her intentions have always been very pure, and her intentions have always been to preserve, protect, respect, honor Mexico and Mexican people. So at least that's the way that I see her. I don't see her as appropriating Mexican food, thankfully, because I think she gets it. She really understands it. So I'm not sure. I'm very curious to know what more Mexican people think of her.
Absolutely. So this part of this documentary was shot in Michoacan, right?
Yes.
I found that very interesting because Michoacan right now is unfortunately a very violent situation. So I want to ask you if she's living there alone, and I don't know if there was a moment that you feel a little bit insecure?
Yeah, or uncomfortable. Thankfully, no. The area where she is in Michoacan is on the westernmost border with the state of Mexico. So it's 2.5 hours west of Mexico City driving. So I think it was not in the epicenter of the violence, and it was sort of, it was less dangerous, or at least in my experience, I never felt unsafe. But I also am naive about that because I've never experienced violence in Mexico. So maybe there were signals, I never felt them. I always felt safe.
Okay.
In that area.
Okay. To close this interview, I would love if you can tell to the Mexican people what would you highlight or what did you learn about Mexican culture while you were doing this documentary?
Well, I moved to Mexico and was living in Mexico City and wasn't planning on coming back to the States, but I had this opportunity, had to go back to New York, and I was heartbroken because I felt more connected and more alive and more human in Mexico than I think I have anywhere else I've ever been, because the culture is so warm, it's so giving, it's so beautiful, the food is amazing, and it's an impoverished country, but the people are kind and bright, and they don't let these unfortunate circumstances limit their ability to have these heart connections with everyone else around them. Whereas then you go back to the US or to any big city and everyone's angry. They're privileged and angry, and in Mexico it felt like the opposite.
Elizabeth, what about saying to like inviting the Mexican audience to watch the movie, but in Spanish. Would you feel comfortable? Yeah,
Claro
something
que sí.
like and say.
Se invito para ver a esta película. Es un placer más grande de mi vida para crear este proyecto y para conectar con la gente mexicana en esta manera. Es un honor más grande de mi vida. Gracias, muchísimas gracias.